Toddlerhood and screen time, specifically on a phone and TV. My name is Dusty Bosco Latu, and I'm excited to speak with you about my topic today. So the issue that I'm going to be discussing today is to investigate whether screen exposure is beneficial or detrimental for early language development in infants and toddlers. So a trend or prevalence in our world. So despite all of the availabilities of technology that children have, whether it's tablets, smartphones, Kindles, television still remains as the most frequent used screen media consumed by young children today. Children's ages 0 to 3 years old are using media at increasing rates, with 75% to 96% of infants using media daily. Nationwide, parents report younger children, and that is younger than 2 years old, consume on average 1 hour of screen media per day. These numbers suggest that very young children consume media on a regular basis. Nowadays, with the immense advancement in technology, children are provided with more opportunities to be exposed to digital devices, and the tendency in the age of screen exposure continues to be younger. So I found that was very interesting. Not only are more children consuming screen time, but children are getting younger and younger as they are consuming screen time. And nevertheless, this considerable debate over whether screen exposure is beneficial or detrimental for early language development has continued for decades. And I thought it was very interesting because I was really anxious and excited to do this topic because I do have a 11 and a half month old child, and I screen time is something that's really intrigued me, and the effects of it, especially on learning development. And it was interesting how this is actually, like what that last point I read, this has been a huge debate, and there's so much information on screen time, and so I want to dig into it. So the first side in favor of screen time, so these are the couple of the benefits that they said about why screen time is a positive thing. So the first thing, the findings suggest that restricting the screen time on young children, improving the quality of screen content and context, and ensuring that children do not start using screens too early are advantageous to early language development. Second, encouraging parents to change to educational and pro-social content and engage with their children around technology will allow children to reap the most benefit from what they view. Number 3, several research demonstrated that screen use is advantageous to language outcomes. Number 4, abundant empirical evidence indicated that in the first 3 years of life, screen exposure may act as a daily linguistic input that stimulates the ability of infants and toddlers to comprehend and use language, which has great impact on early receptive and expressive language, grammar mastery, pre-literacy skills, and among others. So, in favor of it, there are a lot of linguistic developments and grammar mastery, pre-literacy skills, and just like educational benefits from using screen time, as long as what the first point said, as long as you restrict it and keep it in balance about the quality of what they're watching, and then that they're not too early watching it. As long as you keep a balance on it, in fact, it actually can improve their linguistic development as a child. So let's go to the second side, which there's a lot more there's a lot less in favor than there is in opposition, there's only one more bullet point in opposition, but let's get into it. So, in a cross-sectional study of 47 healthy preschoolers aged 3 to 5, researchers examined MRI scans of their brains, evaluated their cognitive thinking skills, and compared them with parental reports of amount of screen time spent. Results indicated children who had higher than the AAP Council of Communications and Media recommended screen times had delayed white matter development, decreased ability to rapidly name objects, and poor literacy skills. Among that, some of the other effects of screen time, negative effects of screen time, I've bolded, such as developmental delays, obesity, sleep deprivation, poor language outcomes, poor performance on developmental screen testings. Time spent with screen media may displace other more active and more meaningful pursuits, such as reading, exercising, or playing with friends. The media use does not promote language skills. Media distracts parents and decreases parent-children interactions. And TV watching reduces the amount of time in creative play and time spent interacting with parents and siblings. There's also concerns with screen time regarding a child's health, which I've already mentioned some of them, but that would be obesity, sleep issues, aggressive behaviors, and language delays. So where do I stand on all of this? So I guess my very first thing I wanted to say was I think there's two key components that need to be considered almost like simultaneously when you're considering screen time. I think the first would be, number one, we need to be controlling our the quantity. So like the duration that a child is on a screen. And then the other part of that is we need to be not only controlling the quantity, like the amount of time that they're watching a screen during their day, but on top of that, we need to be controlling or considering the quality of the content, or like what is exactly that they are watching. So trying to find that balance between quality and quantity. The second thing is everything starts from home, right? Early childhood is a period of tremendous language growth impacted by home environment and early experiences. So ultimately, everything that happens with our children and their learning, with or without a screen, ultimately comes from home. So really reflecting like what we're doing in the home in those early developmental years, with screens or without, to help our children develop. Number three is the understanding that when we increase the exposure to a variety of screens to our children, it may lead to changes in the way that they acquire and practice language. And so understanding that the way that we're teaching them their words, right? If we're putting them on a TV all day and watching in English a show all the entire day, morning to night, we have to understand as parents that we're literally changing the way that our child learns and the way that they receive learning about their language. And that's an important thing that we as parents need to understand. And then the last part of my argument is that the decision is ultimately up to the parents and their individual child's needs. So I'm going to do part two of my argument. So like I said, I have an 11.5-month-old. My husband is born and raised in Tonga, and then he immigrated here, and we are teaching our child to be bilingual. And so what we've done is everything that my husband says to my son is only in the Tongan language, and everything that I say to my son is only in my language, which is English. And it would be easy for me to say that we don't use screen time for our son. So in regards to our child, to back up my argument, we do not turn on the TV passively for our son. He only sees the TV or any kind of screen all day, which would be the TV, maybe 5 minutes a day. And to supplement the Tongan language, that because my son's with me a majority of the time, so here's a lot of English, to supplement and hear more Tongan, there's a couple channels on YouTube that me and my husband watched previously to make sure that they're good, but that we watched that supplement the language, that speak in full Tongan from start to end of the video, and they're pretty like 2 to 3 minute clips each. And so going back to pros and cons, I think that and like just my argument, I think that as long as we as parents, I don't think that the right approach is to completely say no screen time, because let's be honest, that's not the reality of our world. That's just not, I really don't think that's possible for a person to grow up and die in America without seeing a screen. So I'm not going to say no screen time at all. Because like I said, that, and also there's benefits, like we learned, that a child can develop very quickly from screen time. But on the other side of the argument, yes, it's good to incorporate a bit of screen time into their life, but more than that, they need to be spending their time with there are more meaningful pursuits that they can be doing: reading, exercising, playing with their friends, playing with their parents. And so ultimately having a balance and trying to navigate and have a balance as a parent, to when you're giving them a small amount of screen time a day, making sure that the quantity is, a good fit, and that the quality of what they're consuming is also a good fit, but also making sure that to turn off the screen and to teach a child how to be present, how to live their life, how to touch grass, how to eat the dirt, how to be a kid. There definitely needs to be a balance. But like I said, in no world is it possible for someone, in my opinion, in America, to completely turn off a screen. And I'll follow this up with saying, just back to my story, I grew up with no technology until I was like 19 years old, except a Wii, if you know what a Wii is, back in the day. And then my husband grew up in the island of Tonga, where there is no TV, there is no there's no screens at all. And so I was exposed to very, very minimal amount of screen time. My husband was exposed to no screen time. And together, as we've blended and been parents, and we were doing the he was helping me like study or like gather information for this project because it was something that interested him too. We learned a lot from this project about the benefits of screen time, but on the other side of it, the balance that you need to have in the quality and quantity of what you're presenting to your child, and ultimately the greatest quote unquote like thing that your child can consume is like your words as a parent and your love for them, not a screen and watching a screen their entire day. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank